you cutting these scrolls, don't argue with your device. If it just tells you that the line you drew is off a little bit, take his word for it, because it's perfectly round, and you're probably not going to be able to draw one perfectly round. So you just hold your engraving hand still and turn the vise. Then you'll come out with a pretty good scroll. In theory, you would always start at the base, but I don't see any point or any reason that you can't start at the center, especially if it's easier to get to. And again, don't argue with the device. I'm just double cutting this right here because whenever I add two pieces, it'll be considerably darker than around that board. Okay. This neck cut's going to pretty much split the difference between these two right here. And the way you're going to make this cut is that you're going to keep your engraving hand still, and you're going to turn the ball right, and that's going to give you a nice sweeping cut. Place the next leaf, you're just going to look for where this distance really starts to lay over with that cut, and you're going to split that difference. On this first leaf, a lot of times you can back up down into here, but you'll see on the next leaf that it's a lot more obvious where you can start the next cut. See, it becomes pretty obvious that you're going to go right across here, just below where that leaf makes its turn. You're going to go right across here and split the difference between this line and this line. And when you start this cut, you have to stay parallel with the backbone of the scroll and gradually move away from it. We're going to look at where that's separated from the scroll and started to lay over, and we're going to split that difference. And we're going to grow with the backbone. And as the leaf gets heavier, it can droop and go away from it. Like so. That process is going to repeat itself all the way around the scrolls. Because what you're hoping to do is keep this distance right here, and this distance right here, and this distance right here, all the same distance. So by splitting the difference where that falls away, it's just a way to help you meter or measure that you get these leaves even. This one I'm going to tie right into the ending of the scroll. Debatable on how you do that. There's 101 different ways to do it. On this cut right here, I'm just going to separate where the scroll starts laying over. I'm going to come to about the halfway point, and I'm just going to tuck it back up in here. But go ahead and use this to meter how far out to start this cut. But this cut is growing from this backbone, so it has to stay next to or consistent with this backbone. And then as you turn your vise, it can gradually grow away from its origin. So you're going to keep them parallel with where it grew from. And then you're going to gradually turn your vise. And then you're going to want to let this go all the way to the stopping point. In this case, it's the other end of the scroll. And you're just going to repeat that process over and over again. So we're going to take this, we're going to come back around the curve, and we're going to split this difference. Same thing again, we're going to come back just behind where it really starts to curve away and split that difference. And on these cuts, we're not trying to roll the graver, we're not trying to cut deep, we're not trying to cut extra light, we're just making cuts because these are going to be our skeletal lines or our layout lines for when we actually do start turning this into something that looks like engraving. But this split the difference process is going to take place all the way around the scroll. Then on this last scroll, there's a lot of different ways to do it, but the way I like to do it is I'll take this one and tie it into the very end of the scroll. Just like so. Areas that a lot of people have trouble with is, okay, what the heck am I going to do with this space? But if you'll wrap your brain around the fact that all of these leaf lines grow from this stem, then the process going away from the scroll is the same as the process going into the scroll. So I'm going to take this border right here and the backbone, and I'm going to split that difference, and I'm going to stay with my backbone, and then I'm going to grow away from it to a stopping point. Once again, same deal. I'm going to split this difference, then I'm going to go with my backbone because that's where it came from. Then I'm going to curve away using the vise, not my hand, and that's going to make my leaves. I'll end up tucking a leaf up into here, so there's really no need to put another cut. This is the same situation. You could, I'll go ahead and put a leaf there. It's a little different than I would normally do it, but easier to understand. Even with this funny looking little guy, we're just going to split the difference. We're going to go with the backbone and curve away from it. You'll find there's classier ways to do that, but for the sake of explanation, we'll just do it like that. Now, this is the beginning of this scroll. So what I'm going to use to fill this area up, it either has to come from this scroll or it's got to come from this scroll. So we'll just pick one, and we're going to come from this scroll. So anything that I cut here has to grow off of this scroll. So I'm going to split the difference between these, and I'm going to go with that scroll. Then I'm going to curve away using my vise, not my hand, into the border. Just like that. And that is our basic layout. I just took some engraver's wax and smeared it on there and then scribed into the scroll lines, and then those lines that I cut in there are just, that's my general layout. And then we'll go back and start turning this into what I call a modified bright cut. I don't know that there is a real word for it, but we'll go ahead and cut it. You can see how to do it. If you like it, you can do it. If you don't, then scroll on, I guess. All of the engraving that I've done on this so far has been done with a Lindsay parallel point sharpened on a 1/16 template, but I have a little bit longer heel than I would normally have if I was engraving a gun or something like that. But this is mimicking the flat graver used in bright cut engraving. Only we get a bonus. We have one on both sides. That's about what it amounts to. But starting at the base of any one of these lines, you can start wherever you want to. It's probably easier to keep organized if you start at the origins. And you're just going to want to start deep back down in here, inside that line with the point, and then you're going to gradually, this takes a little practice, but you're going to want to gradually roll that graver over and get wider as you go around. And we want to fill that area up with a big cut. Like that. And as you get more practice, you'll be able to do it wider and wider and wider. After you've made that cut, you're going to go all the way back to the beginning of it. And this time you're just using a point. You're not rolling the graver. You're not doing anything. You're actually being quite gentle. And you're just going to outline that. Just like you did when you were coloring in a coloring book. You color the picture and then outline it with a black crayon to make it look cleaner. That's all this cut does. That's just to clean up that cut. Same thing here. You don't have to start at the very, very beginning, but you want to get down there somewhere close to it. And I'm putting the V of the graver inside the line that I previously cut. And you're going to run down that line. That's your track, or whatever you want to think of it as. And as you go, when you cross this point right here where your next leaf begins is where you really want to focus on starting to make your taper. And the ideal here is to have it be nice and gradual and get wider. Sometimes you cut it really good, sometimes it doesn't work that good, and that's a lot of the reason for this outline cut, is you can go back and it gives you an opportunity to clean up anything that maybe you did wrong or it didn't come out very clean on that last cut. And on the end of it, you really want to tuck that back into itself, and it'll give it a clean look. I'm going to go ahead and cover some ground here. If you've never been to an engraving class, we've got some pretty exciting ones coming up at the school. We just finished a bit building class. Actually, this bit that I'm engraving is the one that I built during class with the guys that were in it. Coming up this weekend, we got a buckle class with Matt Litt. He's a great buckle maker, great engraver. It's full. We've got a newbie engraving class in July that so far it's full, but don't be scared to send a message and get on the waiting list if you want to. There's some opening in the August 3rd Bright Cuts to Gun style engraving class where we take the style that we're cutting right now and we'll go over this in the class, but then we'll take it to the next step. Because the purpose of me trying to persuade people to do their Western style engraving like this is because if you get accustomed to engraving like this, taking the next step into a gun style engraving it's a very short step. It's a very easy step. and you'll be able to see how you can lay out your structure of your scrolls and where your leaves are going to go like this, but then you don't have to do a bright cut type of engraving. You can just take it into a full-on relief style engraving. If you are a newbie engraver and you want to get into it and want to learn, there's a great opportunity September 7th, 8th, and 9th. Otto Carter is teaching a beginner class, which I think is awesome because Otto is a great teacher. He's a killer engraver. And anytime a guy that engraves guns that bring $50,000 wants to show something about engraving, I'm going to listen. If you're already an engraver and you've never done a gun, Otto's coming back at the end of September, and everybody's going to do a Bond Derringer together. And what's really cool about that class is the people that are signed up in that class are going to get all of the lines and layouts so that they can start trying to draw in kind of the pattern or the style that they want to do on their Bond Derringer. And they're going to email it, and Otto and myself are going to look over it and offer some suggestions and critiques, whatever you want to call it, and email that back to them. And that process will kind of go on until we come up with a good layout for their gun, so that by the time we're actually physically in class, we can focus on tips and tricks and actually getting the gun cut, so that at the end of the class, you'll be able to have an engraved gun that you did yourself. And that's at the end of September. If shading's your thing and you really want to get up to snuff on your layout and your shading, the weekend of October 5th, Rick Simmons is coming to teach the key to great layout and shading. And I don't know if you're familiar with Rick's work or not, but he's an excellent engraver. Very, very classy style. And I'm excited about that class. I'm going to learn some stuff from him and Otto as well. It's a blessing for me for these guys to come teach because I get to learn from them also. If 1911's a your thing, towards the end of October, we've got a class coming up with Master Engraver Bert Edmondson. I say that, I should mention that Otto is also a Master Engraver, and so is Rick Simmons. So if you can get away and get to Texas and come to one of those classes, that would be great. You can sign up for them at texasengraver.com, and I would encourage anybody to go to a class because it will shave a lot of time off of learning how to engrave. Instead of beating your head against a rock trying to figure things out for yourself, which is what I did. And it's the wrong thing to do because I could have been a lot further along as an engraver if I had went to some schools and stuff. If you can't get to Texas and come to one of our schools, that's fine. It is what it is. Go to a school somewhere closer to you that you can go to. There's a lot of useful stuff on Facebook and social media these days. If you have a question, you can oftentimes ask the question and somebody will answer it. And that's great. That's all well and good. But when you're in a classroom setting with other people, they may have a question to ask that you haven't even thought of yet. Or a lot of times the instructor will just give you information that you didn't even know you needed. On these sections like this, there's a lot of different ways to do it. There's a lot of different ways that different engravers do it. And kind of the thing on Western engraving is you're just wanting to fill up that space and give it a lot of bright, shining cuts. Now, we know that these two lines grew from this scroll backbone. So with that having been said, we know to put the widest portion of our cut up here. That's going to leave us a little pocket right here that we're going to need to do something with, but that's no problem. So we'll go ahead and make these cuts. Same on this one. Put a little cap on it. A little outline cut just to clean it up. You can see it's got a few rough spots right there. Just gonna clean that up a little bit. Okay. We'll get to these guys here in a bit. Now, you have options whenever you go to finish out one of these leaves. A lot of times, I like to start a thumb cut. And they call it a thumb cut because, well, it looks like a thumb. And you're going to use your vise to turn this because that's going to help the cut be consistent with the cut that's beneath it. But if you look at that, you can see that when I made that cut, that kind of made this into a point. Well, all we're going to do is just help that look a little bit more like a leaf. So I'll start inside here, and this time I am going to roll my graver a little bit and tuck it right up into this corner. Like that. On this one, I'm going to take this corner off. I'm going to start inside here. And I'm just going to widen that cut out a little bit. Tuck that back up under there. And you just pretty much repeat that process all the way around. You can see what started to look like the leaf there. Just going to tuck that under there. We'll put our V-graver right back in this groove. Finish that off like that. Now, the placement of this thumb right here is pretty simple to understand if you can wrap your brain around the fact that this was the backbone, these grew from the backbone. Well, so do these. You're just not showing your work all the way down. So the real origin of that thumb comes from here. You're just not going to show this whole cut. You're only going to, what's going to be visible to the viewer is just the thumb. Because you're going to make it more convincing that that came through here with shade lines. And doing it this way almost predetermines the shape of the end of your leaf. And I'm doing this pretty slow because I'm recording the video, but in real time, this tile goes quite fast. This one came out a little bit flat. It's an opportunity to do a different type of cut. And in Western engraving, a lot of times they'll tell you, okay, between your leaves you make an S cut. Sometimes I use them, sometimes I don't. But when I get in a situation like this, an S cut is the best thing to do because that's what's going to look the best. So I'll make the S cut. And now I have this little bitty triangle of metal right here that I need to do something with. Try to get that where you can see it better. You got a little bitty triangle of metal right here. And we're just going to pick that out of there. And you're going to repeat that process on all of the scrolls that you have on your layout.